to talk to you about hydraulic fracturing. This is a picture of where I come from. This is actually showing you 4 states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming, but it shows you the red line, the Williston Basin. And within that, that is the Bakken Formation area. The small purple in North Dakota there, that's my reservation. It's about 1 million acres. And that shows you the entire Williston Basin, and again, the Bakken Shale Formation that exists. So my reservation is smack dab in the middle of that play, these industries call it, which is disgusting. And just shows you the process of what they do with hydraulic fracturing. And a lot of these companies try to say that, oh, it's 10,000 feet underground, so it doesn't matter what's happening because it's all underneath. And they don't talk about what's happening on the surface with all of these trucks that need to haul the oil for once it comes out, or trucks that need to haul fresh water to go down the well, and then contaminated water that come out of the wells. And this picture actually shows, it's hard to see, but the dark red is the shale oil within the United States. It's actually happening within, I believe, 34 states right now in the United States. But it's also happening worldwide. In the red is where fracking is taking place all across the world. With that's current development, not proposed developments. And what it looks like is oil rigs. Their pictures are dark. This is a typical rig that you would see at my hometown when you come in there. And this you can't see, but it's a field. It used to be a wheat field, and that's a sign there. And that sign actually says, "Do not enter industrial zoned." Because instead of growing wheat for the rest of the country like North Dakota used to be really good at, we're starting to just be an oil state where we're going to do that for you all. So there you go. And why not frack farmland? Well, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't frack farmland. And you can read them up there. It should really bother people that 25% of the cows that are on these farmlands have cancer and mutations as a result of fracking, and this is across the country. 75% have their organs and gastrointestinal systems infected. I don't know that the companies are actually telling us what meat we're ingesting. I don't think they are. I think that if a cow is sick, that they still cut up that meat and serve it on your plate and are ingesting it within our bodies. So this just goes to show you that just because I'm there in North Dakota and it's a smaller population doesn't mean our meat stays there. It does go out across the country as well to people that are ingesting it that way. And this is just some of the truck traffic that we now see in our lands. We never had trucks like this before. And now we see semis and roadwork signs all over. I grew up in a community of 1,500 people, which has expanded exponentially because of the man camps, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But a lot of our roads are dirt roads, or they're turning back into dirt roads because the trucks are just crumbling our roads, and the government is not putting money back into the infrastructure to build the roads. I don't know where the money is going because we're supposed to be a big, rich state, and we're not seeing that money. And another problem for our plants is that the dust pollution is settling on the plants, and we're actually seeing lower yields of our crops in North Dakota as a result of just dust pollution. And this never used to look like this just 5 years ago. This is just a picture I took out by Mandan, which is one of our communities, and it's ozone from volatile organic compounds that are now in the air, along with the dust pollution that we are now breathing in every single day, on top of what we already had in North Dakota, which was a lot of coal, a lot of mercury contamination, a lot of contaminants that were already there prior to the fracking. So now what we see, and this is actually a sacred site in Twin Buttes in another community where my grandma used to go to fast. We're not even allowed in these sites anymore, authorized personnel only. We still bypass these signs. It's probably dangerous, but nobody's out there monitoring it, but they do put up a sign telling us to stay out. And a lot of the plants that we use traditionally and for medicinally, they don't even grow there anymore. So I like to connect what's happening with the pipelines and the pipeline infrastructure to our struggle. How many of you have heard of the Keystone XL pipeline? Yeah, there's a good number of folks, because that's something that IEN is also fighting against. And it comes from up in the tar sands in Canada and runs all the way down through the country there to Texas, where they can refine the oil out. And if you look at the map of the United States aquifers, you can see that the pipeline runs through these. You can also see the fracking sites there once again. So it's the industry that poses the question, what could possibly go wrong with such a pipeline? And you only have to use your imagination to understand that a lot can go wrong because pipelines break. This is one that broke at home, and it was like that for who knows how long before it was actually discovered, because you can see they had to dig it up. And what it did was it contaminated Lake Sakakawea. It is a very, very large body of water that is actually a reservoir that is now on our reservation as a result of a dam that was built at home. And they said that, you can see the water in the background, they said that this spill, which the little sandbags protected it, that did not reach Lake Sakakawea. And that was the final report. And there hasn't been any updates given since 2011 about that particular spill, because there have been numerous since then. They can't keep up. The trucks at home on the reservation are very blatant and very bold in what they do. Because there's loopholes on a reservation with fracking, they literally drive down our highways and dump frack water right on the highways. And frack water can contain up to 2,000 various chemicals, many that are carcinogenic, that are cancer-causing chemicals. And we have a problem with our police force system there because it's a reservation. So it's a native cop pulls over a white driver, there's no jurisdiction. They have to call a sheriff that has to come from another county, and they can't hold the truck driver there. As a result, they often just leave, or they don't even get pulled over anymore. This guy was like, oh, I know my valve is broken, but I'm just trying to get to my destination here. And they just had to let him go. And I have no idea what that is. But this is another spill, or this is a site where you can see the water in the puddle there. This is where the oil wells are. Once you actually frack and drill down there, there's all these wells that are all over the place. And they say that, well, we built up a little 12-foot berm all the way around it, so you're good, you're safe. And what was happening was that these were flooding, especially from when all the winter snow melted. These were just flooding like crazy, and companies were getting fined, but it was very minimal fines, and so they just paid the fines because they're getting billions of dollars as a result of this industry. And so we also have these waste pits that they use to store this water, and a lot of times they call this salt water. And they just say, that's all it is, it's salt water, it's brine, don't worry, it's just salty. They don't talk about the chemicals that are in it. And the pits are just open, like that. And they said, don't worry, we have protection around the pits. So I went out there and I took a picture of the protection around the pit. And I don't know what that little flag is supposed to stop, but it didn't stop me, and it's not going to stop animals and things from going in there. And the liners themselves are all ripped and torn up. And again, nobody stopped me. I just went right up to this site, past the little sign, and took a picture. And when I went up there was some deer that ran away. And I don't know if they were trying to get down and drink that water, but I imagine many of them do. And you can't see it very good, but this is a bottle of water that I took out of Lake Sakakawea. And if you can see it on my computer screen, it's very blue. And you're not supposed to be swimming in water that looks like that, but that's what we were doing. We were swimming. We're like, oh my God, look at that water. What's up with that? We got to take this sample to the State Department, and everybody's going to be really riled up and concerned about this. So we had to pay out of pocket for the testing. The test came back, and they said, don't worry, it's just a blue-green algae bloom. And at the time, I was like, oh, okay. So I looked it up. It's toxic. It can kill fish. You're not supposed to swim in it. And this water was taken out 1 mile downstream from our water intake plant. for one of our cities, because we get all of our water out of Lake Sakakawea for living on the reservation. And this was about 3 years ago. Now, everybody's just like, oh, a blue-green algae bloom. It's just become like commonplace. And I got to remind people that what I'm talking about is the Missouri River system. If you look at North Dakota, the big red body of water there, what I'm talking about is that's Lake Sakakawea. It's a huge reservoir. And the government back in the day put in the Pick-Sloan Act, and that is where they built a series of dams to control flooding down in Missouri. Incidentally, all of those big bodies of water that you see on the Missouri, those dams, are right below reservations. So they backed up and flooded us out. And for us in Newtown, North Dakota, where I'm from, that happened in the 1950s, and we thought that was a blow. That forced us into a cash economy. That forced us on the top dry lands and away from the best Class 1 and Class 2 agricultural lands, which were all flooded out. And it was all for the Army Corps of Engineers and folks that decided that they wanted to control mitigation, flooding downstream. And now they realize they made a mistake. Oops, we made a mistake. But the dam is still there, the reservoir is still there, and now it's being contaminated by fracking. And so this just shows you a little bit about some of the things that happen to our air through oil and gas pollution. Now, I have to remind folks, I might not have told you in the beginning, in North Dakota, they're not fracking for natural gas. So when our government says, we're looking for clean energy and green energy, and we're going to use fracking to do it for natural gas, they're flaring the natural gas because it's a byproduct. They're going after the oil. And because the companies do not want to pay for the pipeline infrastructure, they're flaring that into the atmosphere. And we're breathing in carcinogenic things. This is just one example. National Geographic came out. And this is a picture that they took, and I thought, what are you trying to show, National Geographic? I mean, is this supposed to be beautiful or something? Yeah, the rainbow is pretty, but look at the flare. And these flares are in the ground. Usually they're on big, tall smokestacks. They're supposed to be better if they're higher in the air. Ours are coming right out of the ground, and at home, these are everywhere. You can stand and look 360 and see flare, like large. It looks like a war zone in North Dakota. It literally looks like we're at war. But what it is natural gas. 1/3 of it being flared into the atmosphere every day. And I don't know how many of you have been to North Dakota. We don't have a lot of cities there. We don't have a lot of big cities there. And we just got our first stoplight at home. But Minneapolis, you can see here, the lights from the city. And over to the left is the Bakken Formation, and that's Newtown, where I'm from, community of 1,500 people. Those aren't lights, those are gas flares. This is from a NASA photograph. And it shows you, this is the United States at night. That's North Dakota where the oil fields are, and that's gas flares. And those are full of carcinogenic compounds that we're breathing in. If you look in the chemical category, you see carcinogen all the way down. Well, those are cancer-causing chemicals that are in the air that we're breathing in every day now, on top of the coal and the different things that we already have in North Dakota. So yeah, we're seeing even more sickness. I never thought we could see more sickness because so many of us are sick. But we're seeing even more. And so the companies are very generous. They put up signs for us and tell us, danger, hydrogen sulfide gas, poisonous gas may be present. So I'm standing there taking a picture of the sign and I'm thinking, so do I stop breathing? What am I supposed to do? They put up a sign. But what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with my daughter when I'm standing there and poisonous gas might be present? Well, I just have to leave. I have to leave home because I don't want to put her in that environment. And this is truck after truck after truck after truck in a big line in a little tiny, tiny community where we have a main street and all the small town stores line the street. And now this is what it looks like every single day. The kids can't go down and go for lunch away from the high school anymore, which is just one street away from Main Street, for fear of them getting hit and killed by these trucks. Because the city of North Dakota, or the state of North Dakota, has yet to help us to pay for a truck route like most other cities have to go around. This just goes right through our main street back and forth on a daily basis. And there's more and more accidents that are happening. I grew up in the western part of North Dakota. This gives you a little sense of the Badlands. It's not just flat land. It is the Badlands. It's beautiful, beautiful country. But when an accident happens, this is the very back of the line, weaving all the way up to the front. That's a backup. That's the backup traffic when an accident happens because there's no other roads. And a truck exploded, and that also went into the water. And this was my uncle's truck after being driven off the road by a semi. He was pulling this trailer full of my cousin's furniture. He was going to help her move. And they got run off the road, which is not uncommon. It happens all the time now at home. And luckily, thank God, they were okay. My brother was with him. My uncle was with them. They had some minor cuts and bruises. But not everybody is so lucky. In 2008, my friend Cassi was coming home, and she took her dad's truck because she felt safer in his big truck. And we have a community called Mosset that's about an hour away that a lot of people go to get groceries. And she was coming home, and a truck passed her, a water truck. But it's just a 2-lane road, and a car was coming. So he had to get back into the lane. And when he did, he clipped the front of her truck and drove them both into the ditch. And then that semi landed right on top of the cab. And Cassi was only 23 years old when she was killed by a truck in 2008. Since then, we've had more than 40 deaths because of trucks. One was a whole family. The mom, the dad, the 2 kids that were in Head Start. The mom and dad were 26 and 28. The babies were 2 and 5. The 2-year-old made it to the hospital, but then she died there. And we put up this billboard, and the companies complained about it. And so they took it down. When we had her funeral, it was just a picture at the front of the room because there was nothing left, because that truck just crushed her. This is an area just over the hill where there's all these square blue bins. That's what color they are. You can't tell in this picture, but they go all the way around. And you start to get used to the different colors. These are bad. The blue bins carry all the chemicals that are needed for the fracking process. And if you go to the next slide, it's just over the hill from the cemetery where we were burying my grandma that day. Because they don't care where they site these things. They probably thought, oh, it's a cemetery. This is a good spot. And that is just to give you an idea of what these companies do. They don't care about our people. This is a trailer court that my brother lived in, where the oil companies owned it, or a white person owned it, because we're checkerboarded on a reservation. You'd have to look into the Allotment Act to learn a bit more about that, but we're checkerboarded. Indian land here, non-Indian land here, federal land here, government land here, all right next to each other. This one, we had a lot of natives living in this trailer court, and then they were locked out of their own land. Put up a fence and said, you have 30 days to move. Get out. They actually took the trailer door off of one of the trailers and shut off the heat and power to kick out the first family. And obviously you can see that our people don't have a lot of money. We're not really rich. But we fought back. And we were able to push our own tribal government, to push the state government and federal government to at least relocate the trailer court. Again, relocation of our people. But that's what happened, so that these railways could come through, and so that the oil industry workers could have a place to live. And so Warren Buffett owns this rail line, just to give you an example of what we're up against. I don't have quite as much money as Warren Buffett, so it's a little difficult to fight against him, but we try. This could be mistaken for many things, and for our children, it's often mistaken for a bug catcher or a windsock. It's actually a radioactive frac filter sock that the trucks have to put on when they filter out the water. And it becomes radioactive because underneath the ground there's norms, naturally occurring radioactive materials. So when the water goes in and out of the trucks, they use these frac socks. And they're supposed to put them in a very special landfill where they have special people watching the equipment and everything. But the radioactive levels are off the charts on the Geiger counters. And on the reservation, they're like, nobody is looking, we'll just dump them in the ditches. And this one was actually found because kids were playing with it. And then they come into our communities where people have a lot of cisterns, they fill up their water. And so we go and fill up our big water things every day, hauling water. Well, the trucks have started coming into the communities, which they're not supposed to do, and filling up their water trucks with our water. And these trucks use both fresh water and then produced water. So the flow back that's on that hose, who knows what's in there when the next person comes along unknowingly filling up for their house and their water. Or, the water for their household. And this guy just sat there, filled up his truck, and nothing happened to him, no repercussions. And because our own tribal government welcomes the industry, our tribal government at home sold out. It was like, if you can't beat them, join them. They're going to take it anyway, so let's just get the money for it. So they put this sign up, Heartbeat of the Bakken. And they tell us that we should be proud to have jobs in North Dakota now. We have all this, and we have a low unemployment rate. Well, in 2005, way before the oil boom, we had a 3.4% unemployment rate. And now it's 3.5%. There are a lot of new jobs in the state. There's actually 10,125 new jobs, and a very, 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 very small, like 1%, went to actual in-state people. The rest are from all over the world that are coming to North Dakota to work in the fracking industry and get paid big-time bucks. And these people are a transient population. They often have families back home that they're sending their money back to, or they don't have families. They're just roughnecking and working out here. And as a result, we've seen crime increase exponentially. We've seen heroin come into our communities. I buried a friend of mine 2 weeks ago that was 28 that had become addicted. And she had a closed casket because of the way she looked from her abuse of heroin. And there's nobody that is helping the people because there's not enough money, there's not enough services, there's not enough programs, there's not enough police. And these man camps are just everywhere, thousands and thousands of men coming together. And this is the message that they leave for us. This is how they feel about us, letting them come into our homelands and work there. This is what we have to deal with. This shows you, if you go back, go ahead. These are actual headlines from the newspapers that I just took straight right off the headlines that don't get out to the rest of the world. Somehow, if you try to Google these and stuff, they just don't come up. Somebody out there, the government, whoever, is trying as hard as they can to keep this out of other people's minds. But just think about it. The worst thing that used to happen when we were little kids was that we used to go egging. You know, egging at Halloween time. I'm sorry, teachers. We used to egg your houses because we were bad little kids. But we were the naughty ones. But we were what you should be scared of. That's how bad it was. And now this is the kind of headlines that we are seeing. And this is just a couple of headlines that I took, if you can imagine. But we come to fight back in our communities. We come and we gather and we get together and we take back the power in our communities because nobody else is going to do it for us, right? So we organized. We stopped a tailings pond, or not a tailings pond, jeez. We stopped a waste pit from happening in one of our communities because it didn't even have a permit. It was just moving forward. Somebody decided to look into it, and then we're like, holy crap, how many other things did they get away with? There's no people's vote. There's just, this is what people in our own community are making. That's our tribal chairman down in the left in the middle there. That's why we said blah, 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 blah. We're not sure if we're dealing with the Tribal Business Council and oil company itself at this stage. That's Tex Hall. He was the chairman for several years, and that was in 2010, what he looked like. And in 2013, as a result of all his negativity, he started looking a little bit rough. And he got real sick. And I'm happy to report that this year, he did not make it into the primaries. So we're going to have new leadership. So thank God for that, seriously. Because we're also fighting an oil refinery in addition. This oil refinery we've been fighting for a really long time. They actually were going to originally refine tar sands oil and bring it to North Dakota. And now that we have the Bakken crude, they wanted to use the sweet crude instead. So we're still fighting it. It's been since 2000 that we've stopped this refinery. And what we got to do here is we got to stop this crazy addiction that this country has to this oil that is killing people, innocent people, babies and children. Because there are heavy oil deposits. This is current. This is what they want to recover. And if you look at South America there, that's really scary. That is really scary. Because I imagine that South America is kind of like our reservations at home with the loopholes that exist. They can get away with anything. And we're here to help band together to stop that from happening because we don't want it to happen to our sisters to the global south. Our brothers and sisters. Like Crystal said, it's no coincidence. Water literally is life. And I shared a picture of my face, what I look like as soon as I had Ayana there, my future power shifter. Yeah, that's when she was just a little tiny baby. Some of you may have seen her walking around. She's right back there somewhere. But that's why we do what we do. And it's important to remember and to stay grounded. We don't give up hope. I mean, I do cry because it's a lot. It's a very heavy burden to bear. But if you look at these two signs in the front that say respect Indigenous people's rights, it's all women. All along this march in New York City, 400,000 people behind us. And we are leading the march on global climate change. Yep. Because we're not going to take it anymore. Women have a very strong voice, and we're not going to be afraid to use it, and the government should be scared because we're coming. Yep. And so I just want to conclude and say, Matzigadodz, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you all for being here. Thank you.